Thursday evening live. I hope you've had a good day. So today I'd like to share a bit of information with you about perception and reality. There's lots of confusion out there about what 3D is, 5D, 7D, 9D and so on, and what reality is, and who's in what reality, and who's a 3D'er and who's a 5D'er and so on and so forth. So first of all, 3D is very similar to third dimensional, or a 3D object is another way of putting it. So a 3D object is something that's got a height, a width and a depth to it, whereas a 2D object is just a height and a width, like a picture, for example, a photograph. So when we're looking at what we see as reality, generally we're seeing third dimensional images based on our perception. That doesn't matter whether your consciousness is in 7D, 8D, 9D, you're still seeing third dimensional images as a volume concept. But 3D in itself is the old Earth, the old projection of the Earth that we had, thinking that we're separate from our Creator, God, One, Holy Spirit, call it what you will, and that the physical world we live in and what we see around us is the main subject matter. That's all there is. And then eventually, hopefully, we wake up and realise that we're a soul in a spirit, in a physical body, in a vessel, having a perceptual experience in a holographic simulation that's created by us, by our consciousness, our DNA, the experiences, the imprints we've inherited, our belief systems, our fears, our loves, our joys, our hates, our phobias. Everything is projected into our reality and it's coming from us. So when we talk about the 3D, that's the old Earth people talk about. That's the old level of consciousness, the people that are sitting in front of the news every night being programmed, thinking that outside is all there is and there's nothing they can do about it, there's no control over it, and they just follow what they're told to do. Once we start waking up, we're moving through fourth dimensional levels, and that's where a lot of the conspiracy stuff is, and that is another area altogether that is best avoided, because once you get dragged into that rabbit hole, you could be there for years, and I know through experience. But it's only one timeline, and there are much different timelines out there, many different timelines out there. So when we move through 4D, we're going into 5D consciousness. And in the 5D reality, you're probably aware of the fact that you're a spirit with a soul essence in this world, but maybe not still fully aware of the bigger picture, that it's a projection of consciousness. For example, let's say you believe in angels or something like that, and when you're moving up through the sixth dimension, you know your consciousness is aware of extraterrestrials and so on, and when you're moving up into seventh, you're going into higher realms of archangelic beings and stuff like that. But in truth, even all of those, and there is no absolute truth, are projections of what we've got in our belief systems and our imprints in our consciousness on a multi-dimensional level. So you could be walking down the street, you could be sitting in a restaurant, and the whole room that appears to you as a third dimensional experience, not 3D, third dimensional, meaning height, width, depth to everything, is full of people that are in different dimensions based on their own consciousness. Generally, we try to hang out with people that are on our wavelength, but if you go out to dinner with your family, and certainly if you've been following me for the last few years, Your mind is expanded and theirs is not. So you may have 8th, 9th and even higher dimensional consciousness because you've been raising your consciousness, and you're sitting at a dinner table with relatives that may still be in 3D, 4D, or if you're lucky, 5D. They're opening up. So it's not that the world around you is a third dimensional world that is changing. That's not happening. 3D isn't changing. 3D only exists as a perception in this holographic simulator to people with 3D consciousness in their energy field and in their DNA. That's their projection. The people that are having a 5D projection, they're creating what they believe to be their world, that reality is a 5D projection of their consciousness. It doesn't mean that the 3D world has changed from 3D to 5D. And the same again if you go into 7D or 8D or 9D. It's not that the world outside is changing, it's that you're changing. Your perception has changed. Therefore, your frequency has changed. You're oscillating or resonating at a higher frequency. That allows the light to pass through you like it would through a prism and create the illusion, the perception of a different reality experience. Let's say it's 7D reality, just to pick one out. That doesn't mean that the 3D reality has changed, has warped, has merged, has done anything into 7D. That 3D reality only exists for the people that have got 3D perception. Not third dimensional as in height, width and depth. That's a different thing. Volume. This is about perception. So you can be sitting at a table in a restaurant and there may be 6 people at your table and 3 or 4 of them are in completely different reality experiences based on the perception, based on what's in their consciousness and how much work they've done on themselves and what they fill their mind with, what they've inherited in their belief systems, what they read, what they watch, the music they listen to. Everything is affecting their consciousness and therefore their perception and therefore their reality experience. So the 3D world only exists for people that have got 3D consciousness. The 5D world only exists for people that have got 5D consciousness. As we go up through these different levels of consciousness, let's say you're in 9D. And that's the level, by the way, as far as I'm aware, that we need to get into to eliminate war on a higher level. If you're in 9D, you can still have a perception, experience of a lower dimensional thing based on your choices. And I'll give you an example of that. So let's say you've got 9D consciousness because you've been working on yourself, you've been getting your trauma out, you're tending to observe things more, listen more, zip it on the opinions and wanting to be right in arguments and things like that, because the more enlightened we become, it's not important. We don't care about winning fights. People in 3D are quite happy to, argue and fight, but generally people in higher dimensional realm, they're not interested in stuff like that. They know that everyone's got their own perception going on, so what's the point in getting into an argument about it? But when you're in the higher echelon of these levels of consciousness, these dimensional realms, you can still see what's going on in the lower dimensional realms. So you can still see what's going on in, let's say, your neighbour's third dimensional reality. You can still see what's going on in war-torn areas in the world, but only if you read about them in the news, watch the news on your phone, watch the news on TV, because that allows a portal a wormhole, if you like, into that dimensional experience. And I've spoken before about the 3-second rule. Once you start going into that and naming things, you're pulling that back into your consciousness, which is lowering your frequency. So if you got to say 9D and then all of a sudden you get hooked on watching something on the internet that's about something nasty going on in the other side of the world, for example, and you're watching it every day and you start watching it and watching it and watching it, that's pulling you back down into a lower frequency. We resonate, and I've said this before, at the frequency, the average frequency of the people we spend, 5 people we spend most of our time with. So it's wise to hang out with people that are on your wavelength, or if you can find them, higher than you, because they help you rise up in your frequency, and that's what we're here to do. Most of us that consider ourselves, and I use the term loosely, light workers, star seeds, people that are on Earth at this time in order to help with the planetary ascension that's going on. We tend to hang out with and look for people that are on our wavelength. But every now and then there's going to be people coming in that are not. So you've got choices. You can either move away from them, or you can plant seeds, plant flowers, as a friend of mine used to say, and give them a little bit of your knowledge and see how they deal with it. Sometimes you can say something to somebody and they completely don't even hear what you've said to them because their consciousness isn't high enough for them to absorb that information and understand it. But we can still plant seeds. If you are talking to someone about it and maybe one little seed has been planted somewhere in their energy field, that information was taken on board, even if they didn't express back to you what you were hoping for. So if you're in 9D and you're trying to talk to somebody who's in 4D, for example, that's somebody that's really into the conspiracy stuff and they're trapped in that victim consciousness, remember that if you believe anything that they're doing this to me, they're doing this to us, that's victimhood. That's not a good place to be. And I know when I woke up, I got into all of that conspiracy stuff and so on and so forth, but I needed to go into it in order to switch those programs off, and anything left over relating to people in authority manipulating, or any corruption from other lifetimes or other realities that was in my energy field and in my DNA, because we've got everything in there. But it's really important to not get pulled into the victim side of it. We're co-creators. We are all a little aspect of our Creator, God, One, Holy Spirit, call it what you will, I'm not arguing about that. I prefer the word one because it's about unity, and it overrides all the religious belief systems and spiritual belief systems out there. One is one. Unity is unity. Unity is one. And within that oneness, we have duality based on our lower consciousness. But when we start to really raise our consciousness up, we move beyond that duality of light and dark into a neutral space. And we start to realize that everything is that source energy. Everything is that one. Everything is Creator. But the perception of it has been distorted. So once a negative seed has been planted, that's pulling us into polarity. And where there's light, there's dark, and where there's dark, there's light. There has to be. So trying to walk that thin line of neutrality takes practice. But any one of us can do it, and that's where your true power is. That's why there's a lot of systems out there and agendas out there in other realities, not in mine, that try to separate people, men and women. black and white, countries, all of these things pushing duality, because when we're in duality, even asking for all I want is to be happy, well, if you're living in duality, you're only going to be happy 50% of the time, because there has to be the opposite, unhappiness. But when you're in neutral, you're in bliss. It's like being content. And mastering being in that space does take a long time for some of us. So don't beat yourself up if you can't be there all the time. It can take years, decades, lifetimes. But the more work you do on yourself and the more you practice, the easier it gets. And learning no mind is one of the most important things that you can do to maintain that. If you haven't joined my Patreon channel, that's what we do there. I open the one portal, so there's healing every time we get together, and we sit in no mind meditation, practicing no mind meditation for 20 minutes together. Thanks, Gina. So thinking about perception and reality. There is no such thing as a reality. Every single creature in existence that is sentient in any way is experiencing their own reality based on what's going on in them. Every single one of us has a slightly different energetic signature. But what's important is when we get together as a group, that group perception based on our frequency is what creates what the masses are experiencing. There is a small perception of the 7.8 billion people on this planet that know this, and those of us that are awake to that knowledge have the ability to override any negativity that's out there at all. So let's think about rewriting the story that we've learned. Most of us that have come together on here at some point have heard about the conspiracy stuff, or maybe they've had a difficult past in their own lives. Things haven't gone the way they wanted. All of that stuff is in the past. All of the conspiracy stuff is in another timeline. So it's important to avoid talking about it, watching it on social media, reading books about it, all these negative things that have been done to us and to humanity. It's time to get over it. It's time to realise that when we look back, we're not in the now. When we've got our mind in what's happened to the past, or when we've got our mind in what they're doing to us, we're in victim consciousness, we're in a negative space. When we're in the past, we're losing power of what we're creating for the future. When we worry about the future, we're losing power of what we could be creating for the future. And it's all right to have aspirations and dreams and goals and things like that, and write them down and do what you want to do. But there are certain things that your higher consciousness is going to bring into your reality. You can't have it all your own way. There's certain things, karma people call it, certain experiences, certain people that are going to be brought into your reality, certain tests are going to be brought into your reality to make sure you've learned your lessons in order for you to level up and get into that higher consciousness. It's not just about being nice to everyone. It's about cleaning out old stuff. It's about inherited imprints. It's about releasing old traumas. It's about letting go of addictions. It's about compassion. It's about acceptance of people, who they are, where they are, what dimension they're in. Not looking down on people and calling them sheeple because they haven't woken up yet. It's just not their time. Not everyone's going to wake up to what we know. Some people are just here to enjoy life and observe and learn as they're going along. Some people are just here to have a physical experience. Some of us are here to make a difference. Some of us are here because we want to clear our ancestral stuff that we've inherited. Everyone's here for their own reasons. But once you get into that conspiracy stuff, people start pointing the finger and blame, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And guess what? We create more of what we focus on. So let's start changing the narrative. Let's start stepping into the co-creator shoes that our Creator gave us at the dawning of time. We're powerful. You're powerful. Being in the neutral makes you even more powerful. High attracting bliss. So, co-creators. This is a calling for the co-creators out there. Join our Patreon group. It's only $5 a month. Even if you don't pay the $5, there are some videos on there that are free at the beginning to start people off, and it's possible, it's a new thing on there now, that you can buy if you don't want to become a member, but you go on, you can pay $5 to join in one of the meditations. But there's always powerful healing there. It's a movement as far as I'm concerned. The more of us that come together in the core of creation, which is what we are the core, we are the source. So in between all of this madness, everything that's being projected out there, it doesn't define who you are, who we are. Who you are, who we are at our core is Creator. We are the Godhead, and we've been separated. There's all these different timelines going on out there, all these different people sharing what they know from their perspective. You get to choose what you want to take on board. Remember, you're pulling programs into your consciousness. It doesn't mean ignore what you're hearing, what you're being guided to, because there may be something in there that you need to release from your system, and the universe is showing you it for a reason. But when we come together at the core, we are amplified hugely. 10 people meditating together is like thousands of people meditating together. And that's why it's so important to come together. The core isn't, on my Patreon channel, I don't sit and share information. I did for a couple of minutes the other day, but usually we just get straight in, we connect to Source, One. I open the portal, we do the healing, and then we do 20 minutes together in no minds. So it's just getting on with it. And it's powerful. And it doesn't matter if you miss the live. It's better if you can be there live, but you can still do it afterwards. Just set your intention that I intend to do this as if I was at the live. You've just created. There are other things going on at the moment as well that I just wanted to share with people. We have the ability, and some of you would have heard me say this before, if you see, sense or feel something that you don't like, you can delete it. Delete. If you say something that you think shouldn't have said that, delete. Dissolve and delete. Dissolve and delete. Dissolve and delete. But you have a certain amount of psychic energy to be able to do that. Your energy source comes in from the sun and up from Mother Earth, the prana from the earth, and you have a level of energy. Every time you dissolve and delete something, you lose a bit of energy. So it's important that you get into your meditations. It's important that you do your breathing exercises, me pulling that pranic energy back into your heart center and filling yourself up with that prana so that you've got psychic energy to work with. It's not like physical energy. It's a different thing. You've got physical energy, if you want to run or do your workout or so on and so forth. But the psychic energy gets used up when we say things like dissolve and delete, or when we're astral projecting and things like that. So it's important that you top yourself up. Until you become absolutely fully enlightened, and believe me guys, there's a lot of work to do there, and you're completely in no mind, 24/7, untouchable, can't have a negative thought, and plugged in, there's always work to do to replenishing your psychic energy. So just being aware of that. Being aware that most people in work or wherever you are in college or in your families are on different levels of consciousness. And the most important thing is to see that pure consciousness, that pure soul in yourself and in everyone else. Because it's not about being in all the chaos out there. When you're feeling enlightened and you're in a good space, you can glide through the messiest situation and it's like water off a duck's back, doesn't bother you. When you're moving through and you're in a vulnerable state because you're maybe in between one-dimensional perception and another, that's the time to retreat and stay home. You may have been out somewhere and just the noise and the chaos really affects your nervous system. This is because your nervous system needs to be upgraded. These are things that are done in my consciousness architecture courses. As we evolve, we're reactivating all these layers of our consciousness. And we need upgrades. You can't put 1,000 watts in a 100 watt cable. You need to upgrade the cable. Nervous system, respiratory system, skeletal system. All of the systems, digestive system. You may have noticed that at a certain point in your path, that all of a sudden you're becoming intolerant to foods that you used to eat before they never bothered you. Upgrading of the digestive system is needed. So when you look in the mirror, let go of this. See the perfect soul essence. There's a lot going on. Just be patient with yourself. See your soul essence. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Tell yourself you're perfect, that you love you. Yeah, the thing is, as we move through, understanding that when you're seeing stuff that's not great, that it's either a test or it's a projection of something in your consciousness that you need to deal with. But we're never given stuff that we can't deal with. It can be hard. We can get put through some hard experiences. It can be very tough. But remember, everything we're experiencing is helping us to grow. We're creating it. Our higher consciousness is putting these things in our path in order for us to learn something. It doesn't mean you have to learn this, no. It's not about that. It's about learning the lesson is about finding why this is happening What part of me is creating this? So that you can switch that program off in your consciousness. But it doesn't matter what's going on in the world around you. What matters is what you dictate to the world through yourself. So seeing yourself as perfect now, pure consciousness, I am pure consciousness, I am bliss, I am perfect, whatever works for you. And saying it every day, reminding yourself every day that you are source, pure consciousness, a piece of God, one, a particle of the divine, call it what you will. And when you get into that in your higher heart center, which is what we do in the Patreon channel, that starts to override what's going on in your reality. Because you're in that space, you're thinking that space, you're feeling in that space, it starts to affect your reality. Instead of thinking what's going on out there is the be all and end all and I've got no control over it, it's just a projection. What's going on out there is what's going on in us. We create what's going on out there. We create it en masse. So a lot of these negative narratives that are going on in the world is a projection of all the pollution and the toxicity in humanity. But there's another layer to that. Think about all of the stuff that's going on out there with animals that are maybe, in factory farms and things like that, and the fear and all of that stuff is also adding to the collective consciousness because they're sentient beings as well. But when we sit and meditate in our core, and we see that around us, in the world around us, we just become a beacon which is changing the perception of that. So think about your life. What's going on? What's going on around you? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? Is it time to switch off certain programs? Is it time to stop watching certain things? Because everything you observe for more than 3 seconds and name, you're absorbing into your consciousness. And if you think about it, the most enlightened people on the planet, where do they live? They tend to go into monasteries and in retreats. They back away from it all so that they can maintain that. And it's not that easy to do, but it is easy to monitor your thoughts. It is easy to think about what you're putting out into the world. So this is where meditation comes in. When you can learn no mind meditation and you're going into that space, you're pulling yourself back into your core. The more you do it, the easier it is to be it. If you're struggling with hyper-awareness, and you go into meditation, you can ask your higher consciousness to turn down your sensitivity dial. So if you're on an 8 out of 10, you can visualize a dial and ask your higher conscious to turn it down to a 4. Being aware is good. Being hyper-aware is overwhelming for your system. It also may mean that your nervous system needs to be upgraded. They're trying to put 1,000 watts and 100 watt cable thing. That can make you feel anxious as well. If your nervous system's being upgraded because your consciousness is taking you up into a higher space, but your higher consciousness is not just going to automatically upgrade your nervous system and things like that. We're here to master energy, and particularly the energy of what we are, what our auric field is made of, our biogenetic field, whatever you want to call it. We're here to learn how to master, monitor, change, manifest our energy field for our own health and for what we're perceiving in the world around us. So the outside world isn't 3D or 5D or 7D or 9D. It's a projection of us, and everyone's in their own space. But there is a collective as well, and I've talked about that in the past with the Maharishi effect and the 100th monkey effect. We do not need that many people to come together as a group and to be meditating together for the highest good of all. That's what this is about. Yeah, it is overwhelming at times, that's for sure. So I've gone over the 30 minutes, and I like to try and keep these short because people haven't got a lot of time on their hands these days. I hope that's been helpful to you, and please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed listening to this, because it helps the algorithms. I keep being told to ask people to subscribe, share, like, and give a thumbs up by Diana, and I forget more often than not. You're welcome. And hopefully you'll share it with your friends and maybe family. Again, it's planting seeds. We can't live in fear that they won't get it. They might watch it and take one little thing from it that's helped them. Okay. Thanks, Diana. Thanks, Gina. Have a fantastic evening or day, wherever you are in the world. Thanks, April. Thanks for joining, guys. I really appreciate you. And I will see you all soon. The next Patreon is, the 8th of the 8th, the 9th of the 9th, the 10th of the 10th, and then there's one normally 2 weeks after that. But September is a big deal because we've got the equinox. So it won't be dead on 14 days after the 9th of the 9th. It will be on the equinox. And thanks, Jess. Lots of thumbs up. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. So thanks for listening. Much bliss to you all. And remember who you are. You are a powerhouse. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.